Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for April 30th. April 30th is the 120th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, 121st in leap years, with 245 days remaining to the end of the year. Today's word is ambiguous. Ambiguous is an adjective that means doubtful or uncertain, especially from obscurity or indistinctness, inexplicable, capable of being understood in two or more possible senses or ways, such as an ambiguous smile. Ambiguous comes to us from Latin. First known use of the word ambiguous is 1528. Ambiguous. And with that, on April 30th, 1812, the territory of Orleans became the 18th state of the Union under the name of Louisiana. A man named Robert Fitzroy, Vice Admiral Fitzroy, was captain of the HMS Beagle during Charles Darwin's famous voyage to Tierra del Fuego and the Southern Cone. He also happened to be a meteorologist who made daily weather predictions. He called these daily weather predictions forecasts. Forecasts. This is the word we hear just about every day if we're paying attention, and I certainly never gave any thought as to where or when this particular word might have come from. It came from Robert Fitzroy. He was interested in weather information in regards to the safety of seafarers, shipping, fishermen, and like that. He developed and saw to the distribution of barometers used to measure air pressure, which is so helpful in short-term weather prediction. I'm sure you've heard your local television weatherman talk about barometric pressure in regards to what the weather might do. I'm amazed and impressed that Fitzroy was so spot on in his observations of weather and that his innovations are still in use to this day. Sadly, he suffered from worry about financial difficulties, failing health, and depression, and Robert Fitzroy took his own life on April 30th, 1865. He was 59. Kind of in a different field, but still a little bit sciencey. I remember hearing about molecules and atoms way back when I was in grade school. I understood them to be the tiny things from which everything else was made or composed. Things were made of molecules. Molecules were made of atoms. Ingredients, if you will. For example, a cake might be composed of flour, sugar, eggs, and a few other things. Well, eggs are composed of water, proteins, fats, and minerals. Flour is composed of proteins, starch, lipids, which is a form of fat, sugars, and enzymes. Sugar, sucrose, is composed of glucose and fructose. Glucose, then, we'll just take one ingredient, break it down a little further. Glucose is composed of molecules that are composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms, as is fructose in different amounts. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, the tiny building blocks at the atomic level of sugar. I find that amazing. But wait, there's more. If you were thinking that atoms were the very smallest things that there were, as I did for years, hold on to your hats. In 1815, it occurred to English chemist William Prout that atoms themselves might somehow be made of hydrogen atoms, which he called protiles. Protiles, the smallest thing that there is composed of something yet smaller. So these protiles later came to be called protons, and now you have protons, atoms, molecules, and things. On April 30th, 1897, a British physicist named J.J. Thomson announced the discovery of even smaller components of atoms. Mr. Thomson announced the discovery of the electron. Over 1,800 times smaller than protons, that long ago, totally blew me away. Electrons are considered as elementary particles having no known components or substructure. That is to say that electrons are thought to be the most basic building block of atoms. So now we have protons and electrons. There are also neutrons, but those were discovered in 1930, and we've gone on about this long enough at the moment. So the point is that the discovery of electrons was announced on April 30th, 1897. Hawaii became a territory of the United States on April 30th, 1900. Now, this video, the research for it, and the technology that allows me to turn on a camera and a microphone, broadcast live right out to anyone who cares to watch, or to record it on a device and edit it and then send it out to anyone who cares to watch. Thank you. This would not be possible but for this next item, this last item for today, and that is that Tim Berners-Lee was a fellow at CERN when he developed a concept for programming what we now know as the World Wide Web. And on April 30th, 1993, CERN announced that the World Wide Web would be free for anyone to use. Probably just seemed like another ordinary day at the time, but this was a monumental decision and action. We have the ideas and the work of Tim Berners-Lee to thank for the ability for me to put this together for you and for you to watch it. Something I'm grateful for today. This episode actually turned out to be a good bit longer than I planned, but believe it or not, I left out at least as much as I've presented here today. A lot of things have happened on April 30th throughout history, and I mentioned a few more of those things in previous episodes for April 30. I'll include links for those if you want to check those out. Alrighty now, today's song is Good Lovin' by the Young Rascals. This one was written by Rudy Clark and Arthur Resnick. It had been recorded by a couple of artists in 1965, and the story goes that Felix Cavallari of the Young Rascals heard it on the radio as performed by a group called the Olympics. He liked it, and the Young Rascals began performing it in their concert repertoire. It was well received, so they recorded it and released it in February of 1966. Good Lovin' made number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 on April 30th, 1966. Good Lovin' has been covered by many artists since then, including the Grateful Dead, and is one of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 500 songs that shaped rock and roll. Good Lovin' by the Young Rascals. Link in the description. And I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share this video with a link in your email, messaging, or social media. If you enjoyed this series, you can check out the playlist that contains these videos. I'll put a link to that in the description. That description lives on YouTube, so for other platforms, I'll include a link to my blog page that's called No Really. You can also find me on Rumble, BitChute, and Getter. All those links in the description. Alrighty, that's all I can think of right now. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Do not disturb.
Okay, I turned Do Not Disturb on.
Good job. Third time better be a charm. There's no thee there. One more time. Attracting. Just read the whole thing over. Are you making some sound? Get on out of here. Yeah, we're gonna edit that out. Don't alienate people who can be helpful to you. Flinging happiness all over the place. Alrighty, back to work. I think we got it this time.